It was a blistering summer evening in Denver when a trembling waitress in a faded blue uniform burst out of Lamplight Diner, clutching two sick German Shepherd pups against her chest. Valor and Hope whimpered softly, their tiny bodies burning with fever, their breaths thin as paper. Inside, the shouts of a wealthy couple still echoed, and the sting of a fresh slap burned across Vera's cheek. Just as her knees buckled on the sidewalk, a figure in a striking red coat stepped out of the shadows. Eyes sharp, voice steady, Emily Carter, a 27-year-old animal trainer feared and respected across Colorado, knelt beside her. One glance at the pups, and her expression darkened. Something far more dangerous than illness was closing in on this young woman. What Emily did next would ignite a chain of events powerful enough to shake the entire city. Stay until the end. This is a story you won't forget. Before we begin, hit like, share, and subscribe. And tell me, where are you watching from? The late summer heat in Denver clung to the city like a second skin, a dry, shimmering weight that bent the air above the asphalt. The sky was cloudless, a pale watercolor blue faded by relentless sun, and even the shadows seemed tired. Along a quiet stretch of Colfax Avenue, the Lamplight Diner, an aging chrome-sided relic from the 70s, hummed faintly under flickering neon. Inside, the air conditioning barely kept up, leaving a warm, greasy haze hanging above empty booths and scuffed floors. It was the kind of heat that made tempers short and kindness scarce. Behind the counter moved Vera Hayes, a 21-year-old waitress with soft brown eyes, a small frame, and the kind of tired grace found in people who have spent too long apologizing for things that weren't their fault. Her black ponytail was messy from the double shift she was barely surviving, and her pale blue uniform clung to her back with sweat. Vera was gentle by nature, raised in a small Colorado town by a grandmother who taught her that animals feel fear just like people do, maybe more. That softness was both her strength and her curse. Beneath the counter, tucked behind her oversized purse, a small wicker basket quivered. Inside were Valor and Hope, two tiny German Shepherd pups just 8 weeks old, their fur a blend of charcoal black and dusty tan, their eyes glassy with fever. Both were fighting a rough case of kennel cough. Ragged breathing, trembling bodies, soft, pitiful whimpers that stabbed guilt into Vera's heart. The vet had warned her they needed constant observation, medication every few hours, and absolutely no time alone. But Bills didn't care about sick puppies, so Vera had made a desperate choice. She hid them here, hoping no one would notice. The diner was nearly empty, save for one woman at the counter. Emily Carter, 27, sat with the calm stillness of someone used to being surrounded by chaos, yet never consumed by it. She wore a striking red jacket, beautiful even when slightly sun-faded, paired with dark jeans and well-worn trainers. Her chestnut brown hair was tied into a simple low ponytail, emphasizing the sharp, intelligent angles of her face. Emily was a professional animal trainer, the kind who could look at a dog once and understand its entire story. There was steadiness in her posture, vigilance in her amber eyes, and a quiet authority that made even the laziest shepherd sit up straighter. She didn't fiddle with her phone or stare at her coffee. She simply watched the room as though reading the air itself. The peaceful lull shattered when the diner door chimed sharply and a couple swept in like a gust of entitled wind. Ethan Vander walked first, a tall 28-year-old with slicked blonde hair, a sculpted jawline, and that specific kind of handsome polished by generational wealth. His crisp linen shirt and designer loafers screamed money, before he even opened his mouth. Ethan carried himself with the loose arrogance of someone who had never heard the word no, and his cold blue eyes darted lazily between the decor as if offended by its modesty. Behind him came Chloe Croft, a 25-year-old socialite with icy blonde curls, a porcelain complexion, and lips permanently shaped into a pout of dissatisfaction. Her white sundress looked wildly out of place in the diner, like silk caught in a grease trap. Chloe was known across Denver's upper circles for her sharp tongue and obsession with appearances. She was beautiful in a fragile, glass-like way, but her personality had the brittleness of something that cracked easily and loudly. "A booth," Chloe announced without looking at Vera. "And check the seat. I don't sit anywhere sticky." Vera forced a smile and guided them to a booth by the window, sweat prickling her neck. It went downhill fast. Chloe sent back her water twice, complained about the ice, the lemon, the quality of the glass. Ethan barely grunted his order, eyes glued to his phone. When Vera returned with their drinks, Chloe gestured too broadly, knocking her own cola over. Dark soda soaked into her dress. Silence spread like a stain. Chloe stared at the wet fabric, then lifted her gaze, cold, venomous, and theatrical. "You clumsy idiot," she hissed. "Look what you've done." "I'm so sorry, ma'am," Vera began, reaching for napkins. The slap cracked through the diner like a snapped branch in winter. Chloe's hand had struck Vera hard across the cheek, leaving a blooming red mark. At that exact moment, valor and hope erupted into frightened yelps. The wicker basket rattled violently, their tiny bodies shivering in terror. Ethan's head jerked toward the counter. He strode past Vera, shoving her aside as he leaned down to peer behind the counter. "You brought a sick animal into a diner?" he snarled, disgust twisting his features. "2 of them!" Vera dropped to her knees, wrapping her arms protectively around the basket. Tears streaked down her face as she whispered, "They're just babies. Please. They're sick. They need me." Ethan pulled his leg back, preparing a merciless kick meant for the basket, or Vera. Neither mattered to him. His shoe rose. Vera squeezed her eyes shut. And that was when the stool at the counter creaked. Emily Carter, jacket red as wildfire, stood slowly and stepped forward, her voice quiet, but carrying the cutting edge of a blade. "Take one more step," she said, amber eyes locked on Ethan's raised foot. "And you'll learn exactly how a dog trainer teaches obedience." The diner went silent, right before everything was about to explode. The diner fell into a stunned silence after Emily Carter's warning cut the air like a drawn blade. Ethan froze mid-motion, his legs still raised but trembling slightly now, the bravado leaking out of him like air from a punctured tire. Emily stepped closer, her red jacket glowing under the jaundiced diner lights, and with one sharp, practiced twist of her wrist, she redirected Ethan's weight. The move was fast, precise, almost elegant. By the time Ethan realized what was happening, his ankle was pinned awkwardly, his balance broken, his palms smacking against the counter as he gasped in surprise. Emily, as a professional animal trainer, had years of controlling creatures far stronger and more unpredictable than Ethan, and the same instincts were etched into every line of her posture. Controlled strength, deliberate focus, no wasted movement. Chloe Croft shrieked and stumbled backward. Her sculpted features, thin arched brows, narrow jawline, peach-toned skin usually flawless under her expensive makeup, twisted into something sharp and panicked. She was used to people stepping aside, not stepping up. "Ethan," she cried, her voice a brittle glass chime. "Do something." But Ethan was too busy trying not to fall. Emily used the opportunity to lift her phone and hit record, her expression cold and unwavering. The camera captured Chloe's slap, Ethan's raised leg, the basket trembling behind Vera, and the terrified pups trying to disappear into each other's fur. It captured the truth, the kind of truth money hated. When Chloe tried to snatch at the phone, Emily stepped back with a self-assured ease that communicated one thing. She was not intimidated. Moments later, the diner door chimed again, and 2 police officers entered. Officer Raymond Brooks, a thick-set man in his early 50s, led the way. He had a square, ruddy face framed by a salt-and-pepper mustache and eyes that sagged at the corners with the weight of too many late-night shifts or too many bribes. Beside him was Officer Jenna Pike, a younger woman in her late 20s with sharp cheekbones, sun-freckled skin, and ponytail tucked under her cap. Jenna moved with alertness, scanning the scene with genuine curiosity, but Brooks walked in like someone who already knew the ending. The moment Chloe wailed, "They attacked us!" Officer Brooks's attitude snapped into place like a puzzle piece. He barely glanced at the pups or Vera's tear-streaked face. Instead, he approached Ethan with a deferential nod. "Mr. Vander, sir. Everything all right?" Jenna Pike frowned slightly at the discrepancy but stayed quiet, though the tension in her shoulders hinted she didn't agree. Emily stepped forward, trying to show the footage she had recorded, but Brooks dismissed her with a flick of his hand and a weary sigh. "We'll sort this out. No need for dramatics." A few noisy minutes later, Brooks scribbled a half-hearted note on his pad, ignored every attempt by Vera to explain, and escorted the Vander couple back to the door, murmuring assurances that these things happen and we'll keep it off the record. When they left, Chloe shot Vera one last venomous glare, one that promised more trouble. Emily understood the message clearly. This city bent for the Vander family, and it bent willingly. The next morning, Denver's heat was unkind, the sun beating down on sidewalks like a hammer. Vera arrived at the diner but was intercepted by Mr. Hammond, the diner manager. He was a balding, jittery man in his 40s, with a narrow face and a habit of wringing his hands when nervous. Today, he wouldn't meet her eyes. "Vera, I'm sorry. Truly. But you violated health codes. You brought animals into a food service area. I have to let you go." He passed her a final paycheck already in an envelope, the guilt making his voice thin. "It's out of my hands." That afternoon, Vera trudged back to her apartment, only to find a stark notice taped to her door. Vacate within 72 hours. Her landlord was Mr. Giles, a heavy-shouldered man with a gray beard and a perpetually sour expression. Usually he spoke in grunts, but today he didn't even appear. Just the notice, just the final shove. Tears blurred Vera's vision as Valor and Hope whimpered softly in her arms. They were getting worse. Their breaths were ragged, their noses warm. She pressed her cheek to the basket, whispering apologies she knew they didn't understand, but felt anyway. As she shuffled down the hallway, sunlight flooded the stairwell, and at the base of the stairs stood Emily Carter. Her red jacket glowed against the faded yellow walls, her expression steady but softened by concern. In one hand she held a small bag of puppy medications, in the other a sack of quality dog food. "Come with me," Emily said simply. "I won't let them crush you." Emily took Vera to the outskirts of Denver, where the city dissolved into rolling fields and quiet roads. Her property stretched over 10 acres, an old training ground once owned by a retired police K-9 handler. The fenced areas were weathered but sturdy, the wooden kennels old but clean. A pair of adult German shepherds, Ranger, a 7-year-old sable male with a scar running down his muzzle, and Luna, a gentle 5-year-old female with soft amber eyes, trotted up to greet them. Ranger moved with the stiff dignity of a dog who'd once worked dangerous jobs. Luna with the warmth of a dog whose joy had survived hardship. Both obeyed Emily's whistle instantly, sitting in perfect formation. For a brief moment, the sight eased the ache in Vera's chest. That night, as the sun dipped behind the Rockies, Vera and Emily sat in the small training shack, giving the pups their medication. Hope nestled into Vera's lap. Valor suckled weakly at the dropper. The air smelled of hay, old pine, and something like safety. Then headlights swept across the property. A luxury sedan rolled to a stop, outside the gate, and a sharply dressed man stepped out. Mr. Dalton Shaw, one of the Vander family's attorneys, was tall, lean, and impeccably groomed. His charcoal suit clung to his athletic frame. His hair, jet black, slicked back, reflected the porch light with calculated elegance. His eyes, a cold slate gray, held no warmth, only the rehearsed civility of a man used to making problems disappear with money. He introduced himself with a smile too polished to be sincere and held up a sleek leather folder. Inside was an NDA. In his other hand, a thick envelope of cash. "My clients would prefer this matter ends quietly," he said. "Sign, accept the compensation, and walk away. Otherwise, Animal Control will receive a troubling report about 2 dangerous, diseased pups." Emily didn't hesitate. She took the NDA, examined it for half a second, and tore it cleanly in half. Shaw's smile vanished. Before he could react, a second beam of headlights sliced through the night. More shadows approached the gate. Multiple figures, moving fast. Ranger and Luna erupted into fierce barks. Something was coming, and none of it looked peaceful. The training yard was drowned in a harsh flood of white light as the high-beam headlights cut through the night. Dust swirled in the air, stirred by the sudden arrival of the Animal Control truck and a second vehicle, a Denver precinct cruiser that definitely wasn't from the usual patrol zone. The sedan's doors slammed, and 2 figures approached the gate with the stiff posture of people who believed the law bent for them. The first was Martha Klein, an animal control officer in her mid-40s, short and stocky with sun-damaged skin, a square jaw, and a permanent squint that made her look perpetually irritated. Her uniform was rumpled, her badge slightly crooked, and her weary demeanor suggested years of burnout and a bitterness toward anyone who made her job harder. Beside her walked Officer Leon Mercer, a district cop not from this area. Mercer was tall, heavy-shouldered, with a chest that strained against his uniform buttons. His dark hair was cropped short, but a day-old shadow covered his jaw, giving him a rough, bulldog-like appearance. His eyes were small and sharp, the kind of eyes that watched people the way predators watched movement. Mercer had gained a reputation in his precinct for enjoying the authority his badge provided a little too much. Years prior, a domestic violence case had spiraled out of control while he hesitated, leaving him with a festering resentment toward troublemakers, a term he used for anyone he didn't like. Tonight, he looked eager. Emily Carter stepped forward, her red jacket glowing crimson beneath the lights, her expression carved from stone. In the distance behind her stood Ranger and Luna, the 2 adult German shepherds sitting perfectly in formation. Their ears pricked, bodies tense but controlled, their silhouettes tall and imposing against the barn's faint yellow lamp. Emily's presence was commanding, calm, and unshaken. It was the stillness of someone who had stared down enough dangerous animals and dangerous people to know fear was a waste of time. "Evening," Emily said, unlocking the gate with deliberate slowness. "State your business." Officer Mercer held up a folded sheet of paper with exaggerated confidence. "Complaint filed. Sick, aggressive dogs. Improper care. We're here to seize them." Martha Klein cracked her gum lazily, nodding as if this were routine. Emily scanned the paper, then lifted her gaze. "This document is incomplete. No signature from a licensed veterinarian. No inspection order. And your jurisdiction is incorrect." She pointed toward the cameras perched high on the posts surrounding the property. "Everything you say is recorded. Everything you do is recorded. You're trespassing without cause." Ranger let out a low rumble, not a bark, just a reminder of the muscle and discipline behind him. Luna stared unblinking at Officer Mercer, tail still, posture ready. Emily stepped back, commanding them with a subtle flick of her hand. The dogs relaxed slightly, but remained alert. "These dogs," Emily continued, voice iron smooth, "are part of a registered training facility. Any seizure attempt without legal basis violates State Code FAR 18-9202. And because you're on private property, that violation becomes trespassing with intent to confiscate." Mercer's mouth tightened. He hadn't expected resistance, much less a legal recitation. "We can do this the hard way," he growled. "You don't scare me." "You should be scared of the cameras," Emily answered. "Not me." Martha shifted uncomfortably. She wasn't brave, just tired. And now that Emily mentioned it, the blinking red lights on the cameras seemed accusatory. "Leon, maybe we come back with—" "No," Mercer snapped, but his voice lacked conviction now. He cast one more glance at the towering shepherds behind Emily, then at the Pups' basket visible through the window. His grip on the paper loosened. The raid fizzled. After a tense standoff, Mercer spat on the ground near Emily's boots. "You think you've won something tonight?" he muttered. "You haven't met Ethan's father." With that, he stormed back to the cruiser. Martha followed, muttering apologies under her breath. The vehicles backed away, one light dying after another, until darkness reclaimed the yard. Emily exhaled, long and steady. "That's just the beginning," she whispered. By morning, she was already planning her counterattack. She contacted Liam Price, a longtime friend and investigative YouTuber specializing in animal rights. Liam was 33, tall and lanky, with a soft, thoughtful face framed by curly, dark hair. His glasses were perpetually smudged, his t-shirts perpetually wrinkled, and his personality a mix of empathy and relentless curiosity. He had built his channel after rescuing a neglected dog as a teenager. Since then, his mission had become exposing cruelty wherever it hid. When Emily sent him the footage, Chloe's slap, Ethan's attempted kick, the midnight raid, he responded within seconds. "This is big. I'll handle the edit. Title: Waitress and 2 shepherd pups versus Denver's richest brat. Upload soon." Vera hovered nearby as Emily helped Valor and Hope practice simple commands. The pups were improving, eyes brighter, breaths less ragged. Hope attempted a clumsy sit. Valor followed by tipping over sideways into Vera's lap, making her laugh for the first time in days. But danger wasn't over. Late that afternoon, Emily opened her email and froze. A message from Chloe Croft. The subject line, "I need to talk, alone." Emily read the message twice. Chloe claimed she was done being used and had information about Ethan and his father. Information she said would change everything. Against her better judgment, Emily agreed to meet. She told Vera to stay with the pups, grabbed her red jacket, and left. The sun dipped behind the city as she drove into Denver. The parking garage rooftop was cold, the wind restless. Emily stepped out of her car, scanning the empty rows. No Chloe. Only shadows. Then a sleek black SUV rolled forward, slow and deliberate, windows tinted black. It stopped 10 feet from her. Silence. Emily's heartbeat slowed, her senses sharpening. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And she didn't know whether Chloe had sent the message or someone else entirely. The rooftop wind cut across the concrete like a blade, carrying the chill of Denver's high-altitude night. Emily Carter stood still beside her car, her red jacket rippling in the gusts as the black SUV idled only a few yards away. Its tinted windows reflected nothing. No driver, no movement. Just a dark, polished void. Emily shifted her weight, posture coiled, every instinct sharpened by years of reading danger before it spoke aloud. Then the passenger door of the SUV cracked open, and Chloe Croft stepped out. The usually immaculate socialite looked utterly diminished, her blonde curls frizzed by the wind, mascara smudged beneath eyes swollen from crying, pale shoulders shaking beneath a white cardigan far too thin for the cold. Gone was the venomous superiority she wielded like a weapon in the diner. Tonight, she looked like a frightened child wearing expensive clothes. She glanced at Emily, then at the SUV behind her, voice barely more than a trembling breath. "They followed me," she whispered. "Ethan said, if I talk, I'll be cut out of his father's estate. He said his dad would make sure I disappear before the money does." Emily didn't flinch. She simply nodded once, signaling Chloe to continue. This calm in the face of threat, the same trait that made her a gifted trainer of troubled German shepherds, now anchored Chloe enough to reach into her designer purse. Her manicured fingers shook violently as she pulled out her phone and opened a hidden file folder. "There's more," Chloe said, swallowing hard. I recorded them. Ethan, his father, and those officers he drinks with." She tapped play. The rooftop filled with distorted voices, men laughing, ice clinking in glasses, arrogance dripping like oil. "The waitress and her mutts? Trash. Deal with them. That trainer in red? Teach her who runs Denver. No cops will touch it. Mercer knows not to ask questions." Emily listened without a word. Her expression didn't change, but something hardened behind her eyes. She had known she'd become a target. Now she had proof they planned to act on it. "Why bring this to me?" Emily asked quietly. Chloe wrapped her arms around herself, her voice cracking. "Because I don't want to end up like the others." She didn't explain who the others were, but fear filled in all the blanks. Emily handed her own phone over. "Airdrop everything." The transfer completed, and Emily sent the files immediately to Liam Price, the investigative YouTuber, and to another contact. Special Agent Nora Ellington, a federal investigator in her early 40s who specialized in corruption and animal cruelty cases. Nora had a reputation for ice-cold precision and a moral compass that could cut diamonds. She was tall and striking, with long dark hair pulled into a tight braid, deep-set hazel eyes, and an expression that gave nothing away. Those who knew her work understood she was relentless and absolutely incorruptible, shaped by the childhood trauma of watching her family's farm dogs poisoned by a neighbor who was never prosecuted due to political ties. Nora had spent her career hunting men who believed authority was a shield. By the time Emily reached her car, her phone buzzed, a brief message from Nora. "I'm in Denver. Send me a location. We're doing this tonight." Within hours, a plan was in motion. Chloe, terrified but determined, agreed to play her role. The desperate girlfriend wanting to run away, begging Ethan for money, hinting that Emily and Vera needed to disappear if she was ever to be safe. With Liam's help, a luxury hotel suite in downtown Denver was wired with hidden cameras, tiny black lenses tucked behind decor, microphone pins inside lamp bases. As the sun sank behind the skyline, Chloe sat alone on the suite's velvet sofa. She wore a navy dress and subtle makeup, her curls tamed, but the tremor in her hands betrayed her. Her phone was on speaker, the call recording app running silently. "Ethan," she sobbed into the phone. "Please, I need to go far. Tonight. I can't breathe." Ethan arrived at 9:12 p.m., the suite door clicking open with the arrogance of a man who believed the world bent beneath his shoes. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that fit like armor, his blonde hair slicked back, his jaw shaved clean and gleaming under the chandelier. But his eyes, the cold, bored blue of entitlement, betrayed no concern for Chloe's distress. Behind him walked Lieutenant Brian Markell, a corrupt officer in his late 30s with a stern build, dark stubble shadowing his square jaw, and a stiff gait from an old knee injury. Markell had a temper quick as dry tinder, and had buried more than one complaint under the table, protected by the Vander family's donations to the union. Ethan tossed a thick duffel bag on the coffee table. 50 grand. Enough for Europe if you keep quiet. Then he placed a slim envelope, unremarkable except for its sinister weight, beside the bag. "And this is for the real problem." He glanced at Markell, smirking. "Your guy knows what to do, right?" Markell cracked his knuckles. "Always does." Chloe choked on her cue. What do you mean?" Ethan sighed dramatically, as if explaining something boring. "I want the waitress gone. Those mutts gone. And the woman in red?" His smile curled into something reptilian. "A message. Something Denver won't forget." He placed his hand on the envelope. And in the hallway, through the hotel's static-ridden radio channel, a voice whispered, "Hold. Wait for verbal confirmation. Wait. Not yet." Ethan inhaled to speak. Everything hung by a thread. The trap was a breath away from snapping shut. The moment Ethan's fingers brushed the edge of the envelope, the door of the luxury hotel suite blew inward with a crack that echoed like a gunshot. A flood of bodies surged through the frame, federal agents in dark tactical uniforms, their badges glinting under the chandelier's warm light. The first voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. "Federal agents, hands where we can see them, now!" The room froze in an instant. Ethan recoiled, his face draining of color as the envelope fluttered from his hand. Lieutenant Brian Markell instinctively reached for his holster, but an agent twice his size pinned him to the wall before the weapon even cleared leather. The air filled with the click of flex cuffs and the soft metallic clatter of the envelope skidding across polished marble. From her corner, Chloe Croft let out a trembling breath, part shock, part relief. She hugged herself, her thin frame shaking uncontrollably. Her mascara smudged in thick streaks, but her eyes held something new: resolve. Special Agent Nora Ellington entered last, her steps measured, her expression carved from ice. She was dressed in plain civilian black, her long, dark braid falling neatly across one shoulder. Her posture radiated precision: shoulders square, jaw tight, eyes narrowed with the focus of someone who had waited years to crack a family like the Vanders. "Ethan Vander," she announced, voice steady and devoid of emotion. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit harm against a federal witness, bribery of a law enforcement officer, and solicitation of criminal violence." Ethan's response came as a stuttered, broken plea. You can't arrest me. My father—" He didn't finish the sentence. Agent Nora's gaze sliced through him. "Your father is being arrested as we speak." And across Denver, the dominoes were falling. At that very moment, federal marshals escorted Judge Randall Vander, Ethan's father, a tall man in his late 60s with a proud silver beard and the type of posture born from decades of commanding courtrooms, out of his oak-paneled study. His reputation for a booming voice and stern rulings had once made defendants tremble, but tonight his hands shook as cold cuffs clicked around his wrists. His eyes, usually piercing and authoritative, now darted frantically as reporters gathered outside his gates. Meanwhile, at Denver's district precinct, corrupt officers found themselves lined up, badges surrendered, heads lowered. Some shouted innocence. Others simply looked defeated. The structure of power that had shielded Ethan for years cracked under the weight of evidence: audio, video, financial trails, and the testimony of those who could no longer bear the rot they served. And at the center of it all were two tiny German shepherd pups who had been sick in a wicker basket barely weeks before. Valor and hope. Their names had become a rallying cry. Over the following months, their story, with interviews from Vera, investigative segments from Liam Price's channel, and federal court updates, swept across Colorado. It sparked citywide debates on police integrity, animal protection laws, and the invisible hardships of service workers. Vera Hayes, once a trembling waitress terrified of losing her home and the lives of her pups, now walked into federal court with her back straight and chin raised. She had become something she never imagined: a symbol of resilience. Emily Carter, always in her signature red jacket, stood at her side during every deposition. She too became known: the trainer who defied the wealthy, the woman who refused to let two puppies fade into the shadows of corruption. After the case closed and restitution was awarded, Emily used her share of the funds to restore her aging property outside Denver. But she didn't stop there. She asked Vera to join her. Together, they transformed the land into Valor and Hope Sanctuary, a 20-acre refuge where German shepherds, especially the misunderstood, the abandoned, the frightened, could start over. The sanctuary was more than a field and a kennel. It was a promise. Emily handled behavior rehabilitation with her calm strength and sharp intuition. Vera, who once doubted her ability even to stand up for herself, discovered she had a natural talent for training. Her voice grew firmer, her posture straighter, her confidence blossoming with each dog she guided through fear. Valor and Hope grew into powerful, athletic adolescents, one with a confident gait and bright amber eyes, the other slightly smaller but quicker, with a distinctive white-tipped paw. They became the heart of the sanctuary, demonstrating exercises, comforting nervous newcomers, and delighting visitors with playful obedience. Children came to overcome their fear of dogs. Retirees came to learn communication. Families came seeking a second chance for their troubled shepherds. One golden evening, as sunlight flared behind the Rockies and painted the sky in streaks of red and gold, Emily blew a whistle across the training field. Valor and hope bounded toward her, ears forward, tails slicing joy into the wind. Vera laughed as she chased after them, her steps light, her hair catching the sunset. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, an email notification from a national news network. We'd like to feature Valor and Hope Sanctuary on this Sunday's broadcast. America needs to hear your story. Vera stared at the screen, her breath catching, not from fear but from gratitude. Emily walked beside her, red coat glowing like a banner of victory. The two young women stood at the top of the hill overlooking the land, their dogs sitting proudly at their sides. They had built this, survived this, claimed this. The wind carried the scent of pine and hope. And on that hill, framed by the rustling grass and the fading sun, they knew one truth with absolute certainty. The hardest battles were behind them, and the future, finally, belonged to them. In Denver, for the first time, even the most troubled shepherds had a place to call home. In the quiet glow of evening over the Rocky Mountains, as Valor and Hope raced across the fields that once held nothing but fear and uncertainty, one truth rose above everything else. Sometimes, miracles come on four paws, and sometimes God sends his help not as thunder or lightning, but as a stranger in a red coat stepping forward at the exact moment you need her most. Maybe that's the lesson hidden inside this story, that in our daily lives, between the noise, the bills, the exhaustion, and the moments that break our spirit, there are still signs of God's hand, small mercies, unexpected kindnesses, and people who appear right when we can't stand alone. Just like Vera found hope again through two tiny shepherd pups, and Emily found purpose in protecting them, we too can discover light in the places we least expect. And maybe, just maybe, God is whispering to us through these moments, "You are not forgotten. You are not walking this road alone." If this story touched your heart, please help its message reach someone who might need their own spark of hope today. Share this video, leave a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another story of faith, courage, and second chances. May God bless you, your family, and every innocent life you protect. May He watch over you in the quiet hours, strengthen you in the hard ones, and surround you with the same grace that carried Valor, Hope, Vera, and Emily toward a new beginning. If you believe in the miracles God plants in our path, comment Amen below.